Hello everybody, James Rink here. It is November 14th, 2018, and I have Jessica Marrocco with us today. And as you know, usually in the past we've also had Peter with us, and he's been away on a mission or missions lately. We can't get a hold of him, or at least I'm unable to get a hold of him. Jessica might be able to get a hold of him. So Jessica, you want to, first of all, why don't you comment a little bit about who you are for people who are wondering what the heck they just clicked on and why they should even listen to us.
Hi, thanks, James. Yeah, so I've been doing some of this work with, actually, I should say I've been kind of doing my own work since about 10 years or so. And I started my YouTube channel. Recently, I've been on the radio for a couple of years under Jessica Marrocco. And we've also done a few interviews together. And the three of us together, me, you, and Peter the Insider. Peter has connected with the both of us for different reasons, and we both have a different connection with him. He's identified me as being part of the numbers group, and I was I have had a lot of alien contact since I was very young. So this is what brought us together, and some of the reasons why I experienced what I did. Peter validated a lot of my information, and he had a lot of the records, which many people have talked about, the extensive amount of records and resources they have with the ACIO. And so the three of us have worked together to try to bring forth information and disclosure to the best of our ability. No one's perfect, but we're doing the best that we can to provide information. I also do channeled work as well. So, and talk to all different types of beings and that are here to help and support humanity at this time. And I also have recently connected with Preston Nichols, who we're going to discuss again today.
Right. So we're going to go over that. And also, I want to share a little bit about some of my experiences when I went to Albuquerque at the Cosmos conference, Stargate to the Cosmos. And also want to maybe talk a little bit about what's going on with Peter. And you've also said that not only has Preston reached out to you, my future self has reached out to you. So that'll be interesting if we can possibly make contact, but we'll see. Maybe he'll come in today. And also maybe talk a little bit about the fires in California. Now, of course, Peter would probably be the expert on this, but we're gonna just ascertain the best we can, because I do believe that it is one of the cabal's attempts to probably Monarch. I'm assuming everything's blame on them. But again, Jessica's website is readingsbyariel.com, so be sure to check that one out, and also Super Soldier Talk for to learn more about this. But let's move on here. So let's go ahead and why don't you share about this letter? Because first of all, how did you actually communicate with Preston? Like, I'm assuming I guess do you meditate and then he comes to you in your mind?
I don't know. I mean, it's been going on since I was a child. People understand that experience it. There are many people that have intuitive psychic ability. I believe everyone does, and I'll explain. I think, in a similar way, the animal life, they have a sense of what the weather is going to do, if there's some kind of impending danger, if there's a predator there, and they have that extra sensory perception of what's going on around them. And I believe humanity had that as well. And also they have telepathic ability. And I also believe humanity has that also, where there are people that are empathic, there are people that can kind of get impressions from others. And so a lot of people come in, they're born and they're kind of a little bit open to it, and then they're shut down because they're told they're in fantasy or they're not seeing anything. And I, for whatever reason, wasn't shut down, but not only that, it was more. And that had to do with my soul history and why I'm here. And I'm here to help. So when I started getting the information, I can connect in, and without, if I pay attention, or if the individual comes through, which I can see, and then I start communicating. So in this case with Preston Nichols, I never met him physically. I never met him. in this lifetime. And it wasn't, the topic of him passing made us, communicate with him, because then he showed up. And often when you talk about someone, they will show up, not always, but on many occasions, and especially at that critical time where he, whatever he was doing, he was more accessible. And so then he gave me a message.
Jessica, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you please just briefly explain to people who do not know who Preston Nichols is? I mean, I'm assuming probably 90% of the audience knows, but there might be some who don't.
I think that you could probably
Okay,
give more background, because you met him personally.
yes. Okay. So Preston was one of the directors of the Montauk Project, which was based in underground base underneath Long Island at the Montauk Point, New York, between roughly around the early 70s, early 80s. It probably was going on maybe before then. I'm just giving you a rough timeline. It was an offshoot of the Philadelphia Project, where they were doing time travel experiments through hyperspace. And they were kidnapping a lot, first girls, but then they switched over to boys because they were more easily mind controlled. And I was one of the boys in that project. And obviously we're all grown up now, but although sometimes I don't feel like I am. But the point is that Preston Nichols died last month, I believe, roughly. And he, not I believe, but it's on my website, supersolartalk.com, the obituary, the exact date. But he came through the last time we had this discussion, and so I think the last time we talked, you mentioned that him and I went to meet George Washington when I was a boy, roughly. It was maybe 7 years old, and it was rainy, and Preston always treated me respectfully. But there were parts of him that were forced to abuse us, and a lot of the other kids, a lot of us were forced to just be angry at each other. But anyway, so I think
more of a witness. I think he was more of a witness than participant, from what I could see.
right. So when Preston reached out to you again, he delivered another message. Would you like to go into that?
Yeah, I was, this is the way it happens when someone wants to really communicate with me. It can happen randomly. And so I was kind of scrolling through some things and looking up items on YouTube. And I saw his name in passing, and then there he was, and he started talking to me. And I said, I have a feeling that this is something important, so I jotted it down. And so I'm going to read that whenever you want me to do so.
Yeah, well, we're ready. Let's go ahead and do it.
All right, so I'm going to bring up the documents. And like I said, I'm just going to read it through, and then, people can do whatever they want with it. But this is what he said to me, and I wanted to make sure it was documented. He said, thank you for sharing my message. I believe he was talking about the last time that I channeled. Even though my many questions whether or not it was me. I lived a very mysterious life, and I had to hide a lot of what I know. There were many watching me very closely. Some even followed me, put bugs in my phone, listened to me through telescopic technology. They wrote strange script on my data and went so far as to insert 14 or at least 14 implants after my book was published. I had a hard time identifying where the sources were. I discovered that they were coming from all parts of the world. They wanted to see what my tolerance of pain was. They wanted to scatter my thoughts because some thought I was very dangerous. I had a lot of trouble with the Secret Service in France, Arabia, and a group hidden in the Ukraine. The origin was unknown. The Secret Service of the UK wanted me to work for them, as did the Russians. I don't want to say any more regarding that. Tel Aviv has some serious problems, and if it is ignored, everyone is going to feel it, particularly why everyone's eyes are focused on Asia as a distraction. I've seen Max Spears. He is all right. We know how to take our own, despite our differences or views, take care of our own, despite our differences or views. Once a soldier, always a soldier. It is a form of immortality, but also duty. I had some conflict in the past and was accused of being on the wrong side. we had some words. You know who you are. I just want to say it was not me who harmed you. They have a way of getting us to fight against each other when they thought we were getting too strong. Now, then he has a message to me and James. The same ones who attacked me are the same ones who are attacking the two of you for trying to bring awareness on the planet. They have many guises, many tactics, extremely advanced technology, and can manipulate humans to um, to be aggressive toward you without them even knowing why. Those involved with the Montauk project have been very misunderstood, thrown under the bus because of these influences. I want to set some things straight. We did the things that we felt needed to be done. All of us suffered in the process. But if I had to do it over again exactly the same way I did it, I wouldn't change a thing. I may be gone, but I'm still here within time. And then he says something to me. It won't be easy. It hasn't been comfortable for you. Be mindful that there are others out there that are experiencing similar problems because they too are getting attacked in the same way. If I can find them, I will remove them from our timeline and humanity won't have to suffer or be pawns for their game. I have ways of doing things. At one time, some of us were hanging on by a thread, but now we are getting much stronger. The concept of death is meaningless. And that's how he left it.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, is there anything you want to add, your own commentary about that?
Yeah, I felt like he's saying let's stick together. Let's not get into any like competition or I was right, you were wrong type of thing. I think he's saying that the enemy is not within our group. It's or those that were super soldiers or Montauk. It's coming from an outside source and trying to cause divisions. And I guess I can't help but think of that divide and conquer concept.
All right. Let's go back to somewhat what you were saying. What did he mean by Tel Aviv? Something about. Can you repeat that quote about Tel
Yeah,
Aviv?
sure. I know. I imagine that it's kind of a distraction. We're looking at one thing because of what's in the news, and there are other things going on elsewhere, and that's kind of a very tactical way of doing things, so people are not looking.
You
But
mean possible like atomic warfare?
he didn't say, and I didn't get any imagery regarding it.
You think the ETs would try to stop the any kind of atomic weapons being detonated?
Yeah, it feels like I got the impression like it's brewing. It's getting more tense, and we're distracted at looking at some of the others that are causing a lot of problems or are very vocal about what they want to do. Especially for the U.S., it seems to be, we're targeted right now because they think, for whatever reason, it's a holy war or it's this or that, or, it's over money issues. There's a lot of different things going on right now and on multi-levels. So what's happening physically here, we hear through the news or sort of hear through the news and disinformation and some truthful things and scary things that are happening. And then on the upper levels and the dimensional levels, there are other battles going on already. People are not aware of, and that's the kind of stuff that I see or interact with. That's the stuff that Peter and I talk about when we usually have discussions. But I'll read the comment. It says, Tel Aviv has some serious problems, and if it is ignored, everyone is going to feel it, particularly why everyone's eyes are focused on Asia right now.
So what do you think he means by everybody's eyes focused on Asia? What's going on in Asia right now?
I think I don't know if the the comments about World War III from China or whether it's North Korea. It wasn't quite clear what he was referring to, but it seems to be like there's some things happening in that part of the world.
Hmm. So maybe this message is for maybe someone in the Pentagon or the military or somebody who might be listening to this who's at liberty to investigate and to actually do something about it.
Right, or maybe take another look and say, we know there's a lot of noise going on in this area,
Maybe
but
maybe remote viewers and looking into the future,
yeah,
perhaps.
all of the above. I'd say that anyone and everyone that is helping should move forward and continue helping. I mean, obviously, we in the U.S. feel very attacked by what's going on in California, and this is not a natural occurrence, and everyone knows that. So that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to come together and really send some energy to abort whatever is happening over there and just stop it once and for all. Yeah, but Tel Aviv, so there must be something going on that we're not aware of.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess without any more information, let's just go on to the next one. So, an update from Max. I guess you just said that he talked to Max Spears from the other side. Is there
Yeah,
anything else to elaborate
I,
about that?
I didn't talk to Max Spears, but he said, I've seen Max Spears. He is all right. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
for those that were worried about him, he's letting them know that he's okay. And I never met Max either. So,
Mm-hmm.
and he hasn't come through and spoken to me.
Okay. All right. So then, you mentioned that, or Preston mentioned that he did not abuse me. It was then who was it? I mean, was it a clone of him or a lookalike or what? Or was that not?
I don't believe he did at all. I think he happened to be there, and I think there were others that were getting abused, or they weren't allowed to interfere. There were some powers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that we're going to become stronger. Do you have any information on stronger in what way? People that went through Montauk, they're worried about us becoming stronger.
I'm looking at the exact quote. I think this was in regard to that they thought they were going to do a divide and conquer, and it's not going to happen. People are becoming too aware. He says that they had many guises, many tactics, extremely advanced technology, and manipulated humans to act aggressive toward, us. Oh, here it is. I just want to say he was talking to someone in particular, and he didn't say who it was, and I think he's expecting that person to listen. It looks like he's someone from Montauk, and they had a conflict of some sort or a disagreement. And he says, reminding him that he wasn't the one that harmed him. And he says they had a way of getting us to fight against each other when they thought we were getting too strong. So that was also said as well.
All right. Do you have any other information about the letter you want to share at this time?
Um, yeah, he says, at one time, some of us were hanging by a thread, but now we're getting much stronger. I think there was a lot of stuff where people were getting psychically attacked or even some other type of, whether it's scalar weaponry or something. And I think that they struggled quite a bit. And so now he's saying maybe some of that energy is backing off, and
Oh,
then they'll be able to recover a bit. That I got that impression.
okay. That's good. All right. So that's positive for those who've been through Montauk. Okay. Great. Well, were you able to bring Preston in again, or did you want to just move on to the next topic?
We can move on to the next topic and probably let people think about what he said.
Okay.
And then if he comes up, I'll let you know.
All right. So I also want to mention, so I did go to Albuquerque at the end of last month, and that's I already uploaded 2 interviews. So thank you everybody for listening. I do have another one. That one should be probably released before this one gets out. Be Penny. And I do have some other content, but overall it was great. The attendance wasn't, but I guess unfortunately not many people seem to value this information. But hopefully, or either that they just don't have the money to travel. Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I think the people listening here probably value this. But so I do want to mention somebody came up to me when I was out in Albuquerque and mentioned something in the lines of, OSI from Kirkland Air Force Base has been monitoring all the speakers, and we'd like to speak to you about Milabs. Will you be available tomorrow? And I said, sure. And I asked her if she enjoyed my presentation, and she nodded. And then at that time, there's like 6 people coming up to me, trying to ask me this or this and that. And I turned around to her and I was going to ask her what time tomorrow, but she took off. So I went ahead and just followed her, and she went into the hotel bar, and it was a dark area of the bar, and she was gone. I walked back and forth. I couldn't find her. So apparently OSI is Office of Science Investigations. So I'm assuming that's probably a DARPA group, because I did mention DARPA in my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, DARPA does not have access to these projects. They get the little trinkets. They're like the bottom of the rung. So they were probably really interested. If I was saying bad things, I wasn't saying bad things about DARPA. I was just saying what the reality of the situation is, and they probably understand that they are the bottom of the rung, and maybe they were hoping they could. I'm assuming she was probably one of their psychic readers, and they were probably trying to read me to see, maybe we can poke into his brain and get information, but I don't think they were able to. But that's just my assertion from it all. Unless Jessica, you want to throw something else out about it?
Yeah. One thing that all they need is for you to say that you consent. So as soon as they say, we'd like to talk to you about it, can we talk to you tomorrow? And you say yes. Now, if you're dealing with an ET group, that means that you've given permission to something, but you don't quite know exactly what that was. So it's very possible that they had taken you without you even realizing it and downloaded some of your information.
Oh, great.
So you think you're expecting a 3D experience where you sit across from someone having a discussion. Very possibly you consented to an astral discussion, and they came in your dream space and then might have questioned you or implanted or done whatever it is what they were looking to do, and extracting data from you. And since we are free moral agents on the earth, being in human form, we have our sovereignty, but we need to protect our sovereignty and say that whether we consent or don't consent. So try to communicate and say you do not have permission to experiment on me or put me through my labs or whatever.
Yeah, they definitely don't have consent for that. I mean,
okay.
They have consent to giving me my files, but I mean, not the other way around where sure, they want to talk about my labs, but they have me doing all the talking. I don't want that.
Well, you want to have an awareness.
Conversation.
And when these beings, I'll call them beings, show up and they say they want to talk with you, say, I want to be in physical form and I want to be awake and alert and I want to have a sense of knowing what's going on and I don't want to be in an altered state. And you could create some criteria there so that you
well, that would be good if I actually had a chance to talk to her, but she took off, so that wasn't going to happen.
What I would do is you remember still seeing her as 3D, and so she's if you look at it this way, that even if you consciously say it within your mind, say, I am not consenting, whoever, because they can read your mind. Say, I am not consenting with this, or this, that you can
Yeah, I
put
do
that
not
out there.
consent. I did not consent to being abducted in my lab and all that.
Yeah,
Not with them, not at Kirkland.
yeah, because you don't want to be
DARPA.
someone's guinea pig or a place for experimentation, and a lot of that stuff happened to me when I was a child, and when I look back and I'm like, isn't that strange? They were so bold and very, very aggressive when you're 5 years old, but they don't show up when you're an adult like that. I mean, they already do the damage when you're really young, so you think you have to obey and listen. It's kind of their way of asserting that they're in control or they're the power. If they're curious about your information, they know. They already know a lot of this stuff, and they want to talk with you, then they should sit down and talk with you here.
Yeah. Well, obviously, it didn't work out that way. So, what do you think that her goal was, or from?
I think she needed you to consent, and then they're curious about you because you don't have a normal flow lifeline. So your lifeline, is you are re-aged and all sorts of things happening. So they know that you become like a curiosity to them now. To the ET groups, the extraterrestrials, they understand this. This is kind of a normal experience, and many of them actually are probably here on the planet, and they re-age and they do all sorts of stuff. But the corporations are the ones that are trying to study and learn the process, so they'll find someone like you as a guinea pig to be able to replicate it for their own means or ends. And so that's why, it's like giving information into the hand of the enemy, and they can say whoever they are, you think they are, but a lot of times they don't fully disclose who they are. Just, and that whole mystique of, you went to find them, and they kind of like hid from you or disappeared. Yeah, I mean, it's very, 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 classic. The way they've done that. I've actually walked down the street and saw someone walk by, and there was a certain look in their eye, and I said, "There's something not right with that person." And you turn around and they're not there. You're like, how do you explain that? Other than, but they're around us. They're not going to. What they'll do is they'll wipe your memory, so you think, "Well, did I see that? No, it was just my imagination." And not to get everyone paranoid, but it does happen, and it's definitely there.
Well, do you think they were successful at retrieving the information they wanted?
Let me find out. No, you had some protections.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
Yeah.
They put some of their best readers on me, and they weren't able to get in.
I don't know if it's you or not, but there's a big guy there that kind of blocked them. It was probably you. While you were away, I saw you walk past me,
What?
and I saw like your others, like your higher self or your avatar or whatever, but it looked like you, but it was taller, bigger.
Was this my future self or something different?
It might have been your future self, but I was watching you walk past me, and I'm like, oh, I was ready to say, hey, James. And then your eyes were like fixed, like you were looking straight ahead. And then my guides, or, those that are working with me, said, I'll leave him alone. He's working on something. So I let you go by and didn't say anything else. It looked like you were on a mission, like you were very serious. So,
So was this like an astral entity that you witnessed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you actually remote view a different location, or did I appear to you?
I knew you were over there, so I must have gone over there.
Huh. So
Albuquerque.
so there's like maybe another aspect, maybe one of my alters that is manifesting astrally that's kind of protecting me. Is that what you think?
Absolutely. I think that's what happened while you were there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to see if I can.
Trust me, like, I mean, like right here, you know.
Is there a way you can engage this alter or astral version of me as we speak right now, or does it not work that way with you?
It, it yeah, I don't like go into other people's space because it is intrusive. And there are people think, well, you can do whatever you want if you have the ability to do that. But there there are laws there as there are here. The repercussions of invading personal space, and I do ask people if they want, like if someone comes to me for a session or to get insight, then I'll help them. If they don't, um, you know, if they're just a regular person, unless I feel like they're threatening me or someone else, and then I won't look. So in your case, um, I think something was going on that brought me over there to see what was happening, and then you were taking action on it. So if you didn't take action on it, then somehow I was involved.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that then. And but I do want to mention that we did Skype you in for one session, and which went pretty good. A lot of the audience members were not aware. I would say not all. I would say all the audience members were not aware of the exopolitical situation that we're facing. Because apparently the information that we share here on Super Soldier Talk, and of course on your show, and I guess Peter has his own show in his native tongue language. Nobody's really talking about this content with Monarch and DARPA and the different Kruger and Shoreline, and of course from
Yeah.
there Deep Space Fleet and all that. But yeah, it's good. I'm glad at least we're making some disclosures. So anything else you want to comment about this?
Yeah. Oh, before you left, I had a visitation of an aspect of you from the future that came and spoke to me, and I was equally surprised, just like with Preston Nichols. I wasn't expecting it, so it just sort of happened. And you know, it's just like I'm doing my regular stuff, and it show up, right? So you showed up from the future, and part of the message was, and I said, well, I can see that since you're in the future, that everything's going to be okay. So things are going to work out for you. And he says, yes. And he said, tell myself, you know, my self from, you know, your timeline, that there's a lot of memories that you don't have, and it's helping you. So if you knew too much right now, they would be pulling you more from Milabs, and other, you know, ET groups would be bothering you more. So it's better off that way. And some people don't understand why you don't remember. And I didn't understand either until he started to explain it to me.
All
So,
right. Well, I guess that's catch 22. You damn if you do and damn if you don't. So, but at this point, I'll just wait for the universe to open up the right door and go from there.
but I thought it was interesting that your future self contacted me right before you were ready to go to Albuquerque. And it was really weird, because then I couldn't call you, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, James, you know, something's going on here. And, you know, you were too busy, and I think you were getting prepared for your flight, and it, you know, I'm sure it was planned that way.
All right. Well, do you think he might be able to come through
Well, you know
today?
what they say about, you know, talking to yourself, or your doppelganger or whatever. It might not be a good idea.
Why would I burn up?
I don't know. I don't know, maybe it's superstition, but Peter said something one time about that, you know, what happens if you see yourself in some other timeline or whatever. He goes, oh, that's very bad. So yeah, I don't know. And I just out of
But it's not another timeline. It's supposedly my timeline, but in the future.
the
So
future. Yeah, but I don't know
it's
if
not
that
like a parallel reality. Well, maybe it is. I guess they're all parallels because everything.
maybe it would affect you if
Hmm. Okay.
yeah, or alter something.
Anything else you want to explain about the future self?
Here again, he looked like that avatar that I saw. is pretty much your face, and it looked like a super soldier.
So I'd have like I had a bunch of wrinkles and white hair and
No,
I was balding. Nope.
no, same
What?
color hair, same face.
Huh.
Look like you never aged, but body type is a little different. Average weight, not like really bulked up or anything, but um,
Did I have purple eyes? Like a bluish purple eye?
that didn't stand out to me. No,
Hmm.
no, eyes I felt looked the same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
and
somebody else said they saw one of my future alters and described me as 6'1", well built, but not like Hulk, but military pants and bluish purple eyes. And but apparently it was like an alter similar to Sabretooth, but he was actually stronger than Sabretooth alter. And by the way, I don't actually turn into a Sabretooth cat. That's just the code name they gave me. I didn't want to mention that. Some people think I'm turning into a cat. But he was created by one of these dark projects, but it was done in secret. It was somebody in these projects who didn't like what was being done. They wanted to create an alter that would bring up my positive aspects. So I think that supposedly is what happens in the future is I merge with that thing. The Sabretooth thing, I guess that project gets trashed because it's so messed up from all the mind control and the dark projects they put me through.
there's I do see Preston Nichols. He said that you're working with him in the future, and there's a fleet or something like that. There's a bunch of people working together.
Is it like a Space Command?
Something like that. It's more organized than it was here. It's almost like they try to wipe everyone's memory, or not completely, but kind of. People sort of lived. They did things in their own way. It was a little bit more independent, whereas I'm seeing something a little bit more organized.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I don't take a break from this stuff anytime soon. I suppose. They don't ever retire us. I'm trying to say there's plenty of missions and battles to be done in the universe. No
Right,
time for
right.
retirement.
There's a lot more involved than people realize. I think a lot of the people that are watching, they are connected in some way, and maybe not exactly what they think, or maybe they don't think they're connected at all, but they are. And so they're, thinking that, well, you guys are talking about your experiences and how whether or not that's interesting. But I think that there's a lot more involved than we realize, and this is it's an elite force. I'm seeing some planes, and there's
Airplanes or like spaceships.
they look like airplanes, but they're very fast. And then I'm seeing that they're setting it back, something that began in 1942.
Is it the Philadelphia Project experiment?
It could have been,
Some kind of time loop.
might have been something that was done before it. Yeah, I mean, you brought up the Philadelphia experiment and Al Bielek. We mentioned him briefly when we were doing the seminar. I think it was years ago before I even knew about any of the super soldier stuff. I mean, of course, I was still interacting with ETs and so forth, but I had a weird experience where I was looking into the future, and the first time I listened to Al Bielek talking about it, I recognized the description of what the society was like. So a lot of this stuff is, I mean, from my perspective, is very real and very true. It's good to be, experiencing life in the now, but quite interesting to know that we're going to be okay, like in the future.
Yeah. Everybody that's come to me that's Remote View the Future said it's actually a really amazing place. For starters, they release all the free energy technologies, the teleportation, all that. So people only have to work 4 hours a day or less. On top of that, there's a lot of parties going on, so there's plenty of time for recreational activities, or if you don't want to go to a party, there, you can do whatever you want to do to your hobbies or whatever it is that makes you happy. There's time to do that, so it's not just work. This seems what our lives right now are preoccupied with. Additionally, the ETs show themselves, and we all work together, trading as a trade. So it's not like they're wanting to evade us; they want to trade with us. And even Randy Kramer mentioned that they like our children's clothing. They also like our beer. So there's probably some other. Maybe they'll like some of our pop music and movies. Who knows? But I mean, it's just saying. It's a really amazing place. So we just got to get through this time right now.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Guardians of the Galaxy when they're playing the 70s music, right?
All right. So anything else you want to mention about this?
Yeah, when you said I mean, people are having parties and all that other stuff for the future. I think the biggest, most important part is the level of consciousness. And there's less of this needing to compete because everyone understands who they are, and people have a more value for their own abilities rather than trying to be someone else, and they really learn to develop who they are and what they have to contribute. And I think the ones that choose not to do anything with their lives, as it is here, if you don't have a purpose, there seems to be a very you seem to kind of fade away energetically. You just don't belong anywhere. I think being purposeful and wanting to help or being a part of the group, or humanity, I think it helps tremendously. And so there was one future society that I saw where it was mandatory for people to work, but I don't know if it was like mandatory, like you have to work. More or less, you have to have a purpose. You have to believe in who you are and what you're contributing. So that brings up a level of consciousness, because if everyone has a good self-worth of who they are, then they're not competitive. They're not cutting each other down. They're not, getting into all that other type of stuff. And it sounds mundane or but it's very true. Those are the societies that really have like the best experience, and that's the future that I believe that we'll be stepping into. We're on the border of it. Some of us are already there. Some of us are working toward it. So trying hard and to get into that point of self-realization individually as well as a whole society and humanity.
All right, great. Do you have an update from Peter you want to share? Peter the Insider.
Yeah, Peter wanted to do a show. We're going to be co-hosting a show called Disclosures. And we're setting up a format because there are a lot of people that have questions. They want to find out what the ACIO has to say. Peter, being the primary link to the ACIO, will be able to look at the questions and then answer what's going on. I mean, he knows the backstory. Some of the stuff that we talked about, you and I talked about, James, is that the people hear what Peter has to say and say, well, no one else is talking about this. It can't be true. Well, he's kind of getting the information hot off the press from the ACIO. So it's very fringe information, but it's new. And if like people will find out more about it, like I think it was like 2 years earlier than most people come to discover what's been going on. So, it's very, very much in advance. So the last thing that I talked to him about is there was some kind of battle going on astrally, and it was related to our universe. But I think he needs to share about that part. The other thing was a lot of the integration of Mobius, which is one of the corporations. This corporation started in the early 1800s, and was the one that introduced the concept of steampunk and time travel, because they got access to the time travel technology and began going into our past and into our future. And so by doing that, they also started to manipulate a lot of the timelines. And then they created these highly advanced androids and have inserted them into our reality, which now really creates complexities that we can't even imagine, because they could act as a form of surveillance, and the corporations are able to observe and monitor what we're doing. They look so human-like that we would have a hard time recognizing that they were not human. And they actually, when you have a discussion with them, they can read your mind, and they can tell whether you're hostile or not hostile against them. They can be aggressive and harm humans if they feel threatened. It's kind of in their program. I'm trying to think of some other points of what he said, but they're, and I guess that they can mate with humans, and as I remember, I'm not positive, I think you can have children with them. And the whole thing's really bizarre. But so they will be around humans, and they learn attributes and behaviors and body language and all sorts of things by just having conversations. So they're data collecting, essentially.
They're androids, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
So does that mean they have a soul?
That was the debate. The question was that they are not cyborgs, so there's not necessarily a soul, but they are so advanced in tech, so well constructed to replicate humanity, or humanoid species, that they appear to have emotions. I mean, it's incredible. It's almost like, Peter was having a hard time because apparently he had interacted with them. He was struggling over whether or not. And these monarch kids that we knew, that you and I talked to, James, they had someone that was watching over them that was their mother. They called her their mother. She looked like she was probably around the age of 25 or so, and she was an android. And so because they drugged them and they did all sorts of stuff to them, when they were pulling away and starting to get off the effects of the drug, that they were looking for their mama. She was, kind of like a life force to them. They relied on her comforting them, and really had a hard time thinking about that she was just an android. So,
Did they ever recover the android mother from the monarch?
I think that was part of weaning them off of the system of monarch, is cutting them off from that. It was almost like, first of all, they're no longer children. They're in the 30s, I guess, or what we would interpret as 30s. It's hard to tell because they've been through timelines. So, I mean, like, been in the future and the past, and they've time traveled. So, I mean, what's age at that point? But their appearance, I guess, is as in the 30s. And yeah, they were still emotionally attached to an android, and that can happen because, like I said, that you can't tell the difference. So when you the soft disclosure of this was Detroit Becomes Human, the video game.
Yeah. And apparently a lot of these beings are buying up properties in Detroit, so that the 30% of the population of Detroit right now are these androids.
Right.
Peter.
And the Federal Army of the Commonwealth, or we originally said Canada, but we don't want to. I guess he corrected me and says Federal Army of Commonwealth. That's what they're calling it. And there was a whole military group there, and they said they had videotape of a hunter, and he was walking around and looking up at all the barbed wire and the fencing and everything that wasn't there before, and you can see by the expression of his face, like, where did that come from, or how did they build that so quickly?
Oh, so these bases are manifesting from like a time freezing zone or a time bubble?
They had some kind of surveillance camera where they could see the expression of a hunter, kind of like stepping out and saying, the looking at the facility or base where this army was. And these the military themselves, I guess, were able to, they don't require food or water or sleep, so they're working 24/7. They were able to establish and build quite a bit. So I don't know, this is what Peter was saying, and
Hmm.
we probably would need him to talk more about it.
All
But
right.
the impact of what they're doing is also,
Oh, sorry.
the impact of what they're doing. I mean, providing kind of a frequency of AI would probably be multiplied at this point.
All right. I guess without any other information about Peter, shall we move on to the next topic?
Sure.
All right. So there are a lot of fires in California, and I have a contact who lives out in California, and she mentioned that the news is doing incorrect fire reporting. Basically, some of the communities have paid for their own fire trucks, and they show up for a little bit, then they're turned around. This is near the Zuma Beach parking lot, doing nothing. So the residents are fighting the fires themselves. The fire truck was actually taken away from them. There's no air support for the fires, even though the wind is not as bad. And news are not allowed in the area. Before the fires, this person was doing a commute on the 405 freeway, and they saw military-style drones flying overhead. There are also reports that the fire started on the highly contaminated Santa Susana Field Laboratory. I'm sure you've heard that one. But there are fire flare-ups at Rocketdyne, where they make rockets and ships, etc. And there's a lot of talk of firefighters not protecting homes. One family friend stayed, and they in their house was the only one that remained, because of the effort of themselves putting out the fire, where everything else burned down. And so I guess that's about that with the fires. So apparently, these fires are probably being started maybe I'm assuming by the cabal. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, the question of Agenda 21 being the issue, to whether it's depopulation or removing the population away from the coasts. And someone had mentioned to me about how China also looks like they're going to try to move their people inland. They have all those empty cities and pull everyone off the coast. It could be whether it's Agenda 21, whether it is expectation of some kind of raise in the water table. The other thing is the lasers. I mean, that's not a little magical thing. I mean, it's quite apparent where that to me sounds like corporations or some kind of advanced military. And there has been some disclosure about our military having that technology, which we know that Tesla had that technology. So what in the world is going on, and why is California so heavily targeted? I would like Peter to answer this question. I've seen a few different things, but I think that it's probably more of something that he should disclose, and maybe we should have him on to discuss more on the topic. But there's a lot of suspect reasons behind this, and it's shocking with such a bold president that we have in the U.S. that there's no control over what's going on there. And You know, if you can command everyone in the whole world to listen, but you can't control what's going on in California, it's not a critique against the president. It's just something's not adding up to me right now, and I'd like to see that stopped. Um, Someone needs to intervene. I have some friends out there too, and I'm sure a lot of people do, and we want to see that end right now.
Okay. So I guess, so what else would you like to talk about at this point? Anything else on the agenda?
Um, well, I mean, we have talked about the decrease in population, and I don't know. I'm assuming that you've gone to the Georgia Guidestones before, and that
Yeah, I
was
was in there 2011.
I was probably there around that time as well. That's interesting. Yeah. And did you find there were a lot of people there, or not many people at all? Because it's
There
kind
were,
of a weird place.
yeah, it's way out in the middle of nowhere. It's in like the eastern side of Georgia in the central part.
Hmm.
I think near Athens, if I'm not mistaken, but kind of
Yeah.
going further east. And when we were there with my friend and I, there was no one there at that time. And later on, a few people came in, and but I did have another friend who went there, and he's Native American, and he saged the stones. He actually lit some sage and was walking around, and the police and the fire department came out. So apparently, the place is under video surveillance. And he mentioned that he's Native American as part of his custom. So they didn't arrest him, but I guess they might have thought he was trying to burn the thing down or something. But I don't know how you can burn a rock down. But what's your impressions of the guide stones?
I thought it was weird too, and I didn't feel like there was surveillance there as well. I mean, I sat down to just find out what was going on. I saw that there was some kind of weird portal that I closed. And I said, I don't know what kind of entities are coming through this one, but this, you know, they were definitely a part of that agenda. And I mean, they look like these really weird monoliths. But what I thought was strange is I drove up there and no one was there. And then all of a sudden, these cars just showed up out of nowhere. I mean, it's so weird. You don't even hear hardly any cars, or it's kind of in a remote area. And as soon as I sat down and was kind of reading through, and then I started meditating, I mean, at least 4 or 5 cars showed up, all like as if they came at the same time. And there was this one guy wearing goggles or something. It was weird. And they were like with like about 5 people, and they were acting like they were family, but they didn't look alike. They didn't look like they were related. And they were talking to each other like as if they couldn't see me. It's like they were talking past me. Like, and I'd be like in between, and one would be behind me and one would be in front of me, and they were talking right past me. And I'm like, it was very uncomfortable. It was strange. So I went away from them and tried to get away from a little bit of the crowd. And I sat down, and I was kind of focusing in on, there was another like explanation, another stone on the ground. And this old guy is all of a sudden I could see him like staring at me, and his energy was like really, really hostile, like angry. And I wasn't bothering anyone. I wasn't saying anything. And I thought, well, I thought that was strange too. So anyhow, I stayed there for a little bit. When I headed back, and later on I went out to get something to eat, and I was at a restaurant, and there was like a little bar area, and I sat down, and there was a guy sitting next to me. And I thought, all right, I said, oh, you're a local? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I went to see those Georgia Guidestones. I said, um, what do you guys think about that? You know, he goes, that's Ted Turner's property. I said, it is? I mean, that's what he said. I don't have any proof of that, but um, I thought that was interesting. Do you know anything more about it?
Well, I mean, Ted Turner donated a lot of his money to the UN. So I'm assuming he's probably behind Agenda 21.
Yeah. I mean, do you,
But I thought it was part of the Rosicrucians. Supposedly, they were the ones who financed it back in 1981 when it was built.
yeah, but who are who is part of that group of Rosicrucians?
I couldn't. Let's hear. Was it the John Locke Society? Wait, there was like it
But who
was
are the
a
members? I'm saying, do
it
you
was
know
a
the
secret
members?
society that was set up not by John. It was one of the founding fathers, and that was like an offshoot of the Rosicrucians or something that were. But I mean, if you read the Guidestones, it doesn't seem negative. I mean, it's not like they're saying to eliminate the population. It just says maintain the population at a certain level, which could be interpreted by an elitist to eliminate them. But it
Right.
could also,
It also says don't be a cancer on the earth.
right, right.
Yeah, I mean, I took it that they were limiting, and then I was thinking, it's kind of like some of these religious groups where they have a number cap, and so who decides? Who's the one that decides who is going to be the ones that get to stay here? What does that actually mean, and what were they anticipating? But it does remind me a lot. I believe the Rosicrucians are connected to the Zoroastrian teaching, and the stuff that I've been finding out about Zoroaster as I have been able to look into the past and some of the stuff that he's done. He messed around with our quantum field and messed up a lot and created a like a some kind of matrix around us. So it's almost like we're in his ship. It's kind of weird. And a lot of his teachings, he's the one who brought in the teaching of duality that didn't exist in other belief systems. So he was the one that said, there's good and bad, and kind of setting everything up for this whole thing of why some people should be judged in a certain way because either you're accepted or not accepted, or the whole Calvinist view of you're predestined to be evil. And so, playing that out, you see all these wars throughout history happening because of duality. And so what was the intention of that? It's a control system, and the control system of trickling down to the Georgia Guidestones, which here again seems like it's part of the same ancient agenda that exists that a lot of people haven't looked at. And I wanted to share at some point more information about Zoroastrianism, but people need to not be offended if it's their belief system or how they were raised or what part of the world they're from. It has nothing to do with it, because these are astral beings that have come and lived amongst us, right? And then introduced their teachings. But we know that some of these gods, so-called gods, were here to control us. And you see that with the ancient Sumerians and so forth.
Yeah, that is so true. And of course, I mean, a lot of these beings, at least if you look at, like, say, the Talmud of Emmanuel, the original translation that came from Billy Meyer, the priest that was working with Billy Meyer, that is. They actually found scrolls at the tomb of Jesus, and they translate it, and it's very similar to the book of Matthew, but instead of saying star of Bethlehem, it says starship Bethlehem, and it also mentions that Jesus actually mentioned to keep the population maintained under 500 million. So there are a lot of parallels to some of the things that the ETs are saying as to what's on the Georgia Guidestones.
Mm-hmm.
But humans are going to do what they want to do, and I mean, I'm certainly not going to sacrifice myself to reduce the world population. I don't think anybody else is going to do it. So we'll have to find a better way of reducing population, which probably means colonies off world, but all in its own timing.
Yeah, and well, what we shouldn't do is try to allow the prophecies that happen, thinking that we have to allow it to manifest. We should not. We don't have to give consent to this apocalyptic event that everyone thinks is supposed to happen. It's part of a teaching that was introduced just by some of these ancient beings, but it doesn't mean that it's something that we have to consent or agree to. And that's the problem. People think we don't have a choice, and so we have to sit there and wait and expect it, and like some people are interpreting what's happening in California. Well, these are end times, and so they're getting punished. And it's already, the fires from heavens are coming down. No, these are lasers. It's we don't have to manifest this whole thing. I don't believe that at all. And I think people need to just step away from what some of these, because there's been many visitors here on the planet, and you can agree or disagree with them. That's your free will or choice. But I definitely wouldn't play out, this whole like teaching of revelations thing, because I think it leads to this whole one world order, which leads to the Christ Antichrist agenda. And, I don't think that was the original intent of Jesus coming here in the first place.
A lot of these, what's going to happen, at least my interpretation of these religions, is it's almost like a child outgrowing their shoes. It still exists, but people just don't need it anymore. They've gone on to something better. So, and I think the transition, it may take a few generations, unless they release the re-aging technologies. In that case, we're all going to have to modify our belief system and grow. But people don't want to do that. Maybe we'll have to be forced along with some of these disclosures with the ET extraterrestrials. I guess I may be going with the Project Blue Beam. Supposedly they were going to have holograms of Jesus show up in the sky and all that. But
absolutely, I've already seen. Was it Mobius or Monarch? They brought me on a ship one night, and they showed me that there was a bunch of them, just these androids just laying there, all dressed up for the part. It was a fake Jesus, a fake apostles, Mary Magdalene, the whole bit, and I was shocked.
People are probably going to believe it. The ones that are not aware, unfortunately.
Well, they would have abilities, so they would be able to do all sorts of miraculous things. And if you want to, what happens is what's an innocent belief system can be used by corporations and others to further handle and manipulate the population. And so, that's the part we have to look at. And I know they're not going to be happy about this.
That would make a really good movie, to have a shadowy organization, very, very advanced technology, make a fake Jesus and apostles, and then try to use it to. Anyway, I think the church would probably ban it. But anyway, okay, enough of that. Anything else you wanted to go over?
No, I think we're good for today. I think we've gotten in enough trouble as possibly could right now.
All right. Well, so if you want to learn more about the work I do, visit supersoldiertalk.com, and also visit neologicaltech.com to purchase a meditation cube. And Jessica, why don't you share your contact info?
Sure. If a person wants to have a private session, they can contact me at readingsbyariel.com. And also the new show that's coming out with Peter the Insider, and James will be joining us at times when he can. It's called Disclosures, and with Peter the Insider, and we're going to be answering questions. So people can post in the comments any questions that they want. You'll find the introduction to that on my my YouTube page, Jessica Marrocco.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you, Jessica, and thank you, listeners, for listening in. And until next time, bye-bye. Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.